продължаваме, скъпи зрители, с едно видео от мрежата, от интернет пространството, едно свободно видео, което обяснява в какво се превръща кръвта ни, след като си инжектираме ваксина срещу COVID. Вижте.
Well, if you've been paying attention, you saw last week we had Dr. Carrie Madej on with some horrific images. That video on Rumble alone now surpassing 1.5 million views, despite the suppression and the censoring that's happening, the shadow banning over on Rumble as they lie and say that they are the free speech alternative to YouTube. That is just absolutely not true. But what you are about to see now, these are images that have never yet been reported on, that have not been widely shown or anywhere that I'm aware of, specifically here in the United States, and they come from Dr. Zandre Botha. She's a PhD in alternative medicine. She holds a diploma in integrative medicine and is a certified live and dry blood analyst. She uses advanced microscopic techniques to analyze her patients' medical ailments, and more of her patients have post-COVID vaccine illnesses. So when an attorney recently approached her with a chain of custody documented Johnson & Johnson vial, she looked at multiple portions of the material and found something that no one else has yet shown. Dr. Botha joins us now. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate this.
You're most welcome. Thank you for your show.
Of course. So can you walk us through what you found that shocked you? What was the most surprising thing that you saw when you were examining these vials and their contents?
I think just to put the vials into context, I am just going to go through a couple of slides just explaining the blood and the patterns that I've been seeing in the patients coming in, which prompted me to start to keep records. So on the first slide that the viewers are seeing, this is a patient that came in seeking medical attention before the vaccine. We treated her, and afterwards, this is what her blood looked like. So a couple of months later, she was very happy and feeling much better, and her blood was showing perfect round red blood cells, beautiful neutrophil that is your white blood cell fighting cancer and viruses, and she was just feeling great. And then we didn't see her because she was doing so wonderful, and then after a couple of months, she made another appointment with me. She was insisting on an appointment because she was very short of breath. She wasn't feeling her best. And when she came in and I looked at her blood after the vaccine, so she told me she had the vaccine, and this is what her blood looked like afterwards. So it was quite shocking to see a patient with completely normal, healthy blood come in after a couple of months, and we see this very severe stacked rouleau. So it's a very dangerous form of rouleau. It's not just a normal rouleau where there's no oxygen. These red blood cells cannot function at all. If you would understand that the capillaries and the little arteries are 4 micron in diameter, red blood cells have to actually single file to get into those capillaries. You're talking myocardial problems, intravascular blood clotting. So there's no oxygen that can actually reach the small arteries in the brain and in the heart. So I was very shocked to see this. And she wasn't the only one. I started to see severe, these weird structures in patients who had the jab. And again, the red blood cells are so deformed, you can't even, make head or tail of it. I've never seen that before.
So when you're talking about these weird structures, are you referring to these round black disc-looking things?
That I didn't see in the blood per se, but I saw black structures in the blood because there's 2 techniques that I use, and that's why you'll see discs in the one technique and you won't really see it in the blood because we use a cover slip to cover the blood. So it basically presses down the sample, where when I looked at the vials, I used a different technique, and I will explain that briefly when we get there. So I started to see these very strange structures, which I won't explain. again, just the rouleau, I thought they were just crystals, uric acid crystals, but they did not resemble it completely. And I found this in every single vaccinated person with symptoms. And then I was so startled, yeah. So in this picture, we could see these black matter, and I found that in every single patient who had the vaccine. This was done at a 400 times magnification, and the next one is also, this was done at a higher magnification. I think this was about a 1,600 magnification. And then the lawyer approached me, like you mentioned, and she brought me a vial because I don't do that type of injections with my patients. And when I looked at the vial, I was so shocked because what I was finding in my patient's blood, I actually saw in the vial as well. And here on the next picture, I mean, if you can, compare the two, you can see it's exactly the same structure. So that I found in the vial, and this I also used by covering it with a cover slip. So it's basically, a normal slide, your microscope slides, and then I just covered it with a tiny cover slip. So this is how I got these images. And just for other scientists and doctors maybe watching, this is probably the technique that they use because this is how we get taught. Just to mention that I'm not a particle expert at all. I'm not a biochemist. I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm just reporting what I'm seeing.
Well, we would definitely it would be advantageous if somebody would come forward who has that expertise. But what you're seeing here appears to be this round black disc with metal connectors. So what kind of feedback have you gotten from other experts with whom you have shared this?
So a lot of the other structures that I've been showing was done by using this technique. And when I shared it with a couple of other experts, I think because I haven't used this technique, they are not kind of seeing this. But yeah, nobody has really come out forward and saying, yes, this is what it is. Everybody agrees that it's not natural. It's too structured to be anything biological. So I think that's the consensus. But I have not gotten, a 100%. Nobody's really come out and said, yes, this is what it is. There's some speculation, but I don't like to speculate at all. But these were self-assembling. I have a video of it, which I didn't share now with your viewers, but they were self-assembling, which was very strange. And so I did one at a lower magnification, and then I did one at a higher magnification. And now we're looking at the discs. And really, if anyone can explain what this is, and this I did by not covering the vial. I actually just put a droplet and I put it under my microscope without covering it. And I think that's when maybe other people will start to see these type of structures as well. People doing microscopy will maybe be able to also see these same things.
So this is just one droplet from the vial. You're seeing all of this stuff. And you said that you don't think that these look biologic, but that they look more engineered. Can you say more about that? What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, they're very symmetrical, and they seem to be joined together by, I can just say what I'm seeing. I'm not sure what to make of it. If anybody has seen this before, then I would also like to know what it is. But I did about 4 samples, and I saw this in each and every sample. I took it from the same vial, but I checked it 4 times. And then when these black structures, when the sample dried, and this is another technique, is I just left the sample on the slide and it just dried. And then I came back and I looked at it, and then these disc-like structures have they're gone. You can't find them anymore. But these black lines started to form. So that's the next thing I saw. And again, Stu, I wish I could tell you what it is, but I'm not a specialist in molecules or in particles. But
you've been examining live and dry blood for an extended period of time. How long have you been doing this?
15 years.
And in the 15 years that you have been doing this, have you ever seen anything like this?
Nothing.
And the only thing consistent about the blood that you are seeing these structures in is that these are patients who have received these shots being called COVID vaccines.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Is it possible that these are air bubbles?
So I actually had a discussion because I wanted to find out what it is. So I went and I looked at some air bubble structures, which were that looked similar, but most of the doctors that came back to me said, you know, they are too symmetrical to just be air bubbles. They're very symmetrical. They're so uniform, but I wish I could really put a stamp on it and tell you what it is, but I'm not sure.
Okay,
I'm not sure what it is.
Doctors that have examined or looked at your findings have said, no, these are too symmetrical, which would substantiate what you had already said, that these appear to be engineered, whatever this thing is, these black discs with some sort of a metal-looking connector is what I think I'm looking at here. I mean, does that appear to be metal to you? I mean, I don't know. You tell me.
Well, when I did the dark field, these particles did reflect. So I'm not sure what to make of it because they are reflective, and I can just in layman's terms say they look engineered to me. If I'm not sure.
You've seen air bubbles before. And
in the blood analysis, yeah.
And these air bubbles are typically not held together by metal connectors or things that shine, I would imagine, which is what we're seeing here. So what kinds of illnesses are people suffering from that these very strange structures appear in their blood, in their bodies?
I see severe thrombosis, severe embolisms and water retention, cognitive issues, lots of cognitive issues, everything from memory loss to depression. I see patients with blood clots confirmed by an ultrasound, just lots of pain at the injection site, loss of movement from that arm that it was injected, severe headaches lasting longer than 8 weeks, and lots of mobility and pain, nerve pain. People have been experiencing shortness of breath, but then when I look at the bloods, I understand why there is shortness of breath, because the red blood cells cannot transport oxygen when they look like that. And even when I put the oximeter on to test their oxygen saturation, it's low, it's at 89. I mean, so it's not just looking at the blood, there's a physical manifestation of the symptoms.
So these people have low oxygen?
Very well, there's low oxygen, there is blood clotting, there's red blood cell aggregation, there's non-viable white blood cells, so the immunity cannot respond the way it should to viruses and bacteria and infections.
Which might explain these breakthrough cases or this Delta variant where all of these COVID patients seem to be those who are, quote, fully vaccinated. No, they're injured by these shots is what they are.
I do agree with that. I would like to, maybe if you can just show the viewers, these black structures are not the only structures that I saw. When the sample dried and I looked at it again, I found these strange square-like discs as well, and they were definitely reflective and they had a very specific structure. So I was, you know, like Dr. Kerry Madej, when I watched her interview and she said, you know, I cry. I do the same. You know, I cry when I see these things. I cry when I see these patients. Just today, I was just seeing patients who had, you know, vaccine injury. They're being told it's not from that, and they're planning to take their children for the vaccine. And I just do my utmost best say, please, you know, please don't take your children for this. because I see those patients. I'm not removed. I'm not a scientist that's just reporting. I've got to deal with these patients that are being ignored. They're not getting medical help the way they should. They're being told they got a placebo effect. I mean, I'm seeing a patient tomorrow. He had 8 heart attacks in 5 hours after he was chosen to be one of the, the rollout vaccine kind of guinea pigs. And I mean, he's been in hospital since March. He couldn't get he had to have a triple bypass. He couldn't go in because he was testing positive for COVID all the time. He spent months in ICU, and he's coming to me tomorrow because he's not feeling well. He's still fighting for his life, and I hope I can help him.
I pray that you can help him as well. That's awful.
Thank you.
So we've talked about shedding. We've talked about transmission. We've talked about people who are not injected being around inoculated people and actually feeling symptomatic in a lot of different ways. Yeah. What about actually after handling this material? Did you experience any kind of ill side effects after being around this exposed material?
Yeah, interesting. I do. I don't feel well, and I actually spoke to other doctors, and one doctor also said to me, you know what, I was in surgery for 2 hours, and I saw about 7 patients, and I wasn't feeling great. Then the next day I was seeing a lot of patients as well. And then I asked my receptionist to actually phone those patients and ask them if they had the injection. So, because we had similar symptoms, like a weird sensation in my brain. It felt like it was almost shaking, vibrating. I had anxiety, which I don't normally experience. I'm a very logical person. So, I rationalize stuff and then I get over it. And I saw a lot of weird hormonal issues just with myself. And when I spoke to my other colleague, she says, it's the strangest thing. I'm experiencing exact same hormonal issues as you. And even working, so even being in contact with these patients and also working with this, apart from the shock, I definitely wasn't experiencing good symptoms at all.
Wow.
When I started to drink a couple of, I've worked out a protocol and I've been giving it to patients that have had the vaccine that is not feeling well. I need to stop calling it a vaccine, I know. When I started to drink those things like the NAC, the glutathione, I'm drinking zeolite, I'm doing molecular hydrogen, ozone therapy, then I started to feel better.
Okay, so have your inoculated patients also experienced a positive benefit from this particular protocol? Because people are desperate. There's a lot of people with this remorse after they've been subjected to this jab. Is it helping them as well?
It is helping them as well. So people have been coming in, the headaches have been getting better, blood clotting is also better. So I do also give something for blood clotting depending on their symptoms. If it's more cognitive stuff, then I focus on that. But everybody's blood is clamping. So, my philosophy is life is in the gut and in the blood. And Stu, I know you also love God and you serve God. And my first thing is that I say to my patients, when you repent, when you say, God, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I was deceived, come help me. He's faithful and he will do that. And then we do the treatments as well.
Yeah, God is probably really the only treatment that all of us have right now for any symptom, whether it's due to an injection or not. I just received a text actually from a personal friend of mine who's aware that I have this show. He said, my aunt is in the hospital, 3rd round of vaccine shots, struggling with the quote corona effect. Will you refresh my memory on, let's say, the top 3 things one can do to reverse or fight the vaccine symptoms? My short-term memory is horrible. And I don't have time to look into my research because I'm in a skid loader right now. So can you email over to me that protocol, that concoction, those things that you have so that I can make them available to the Stu Peters Show viewers at stupeters.tv?
100%.
And can they also find this on your website at drzandrebatha.com?
Yeah, I'll have to put it on there so that people can order it. But I know, I mean, it's all over the world, so I'm going to give the main remedies. Some you will probably not find everywhere, but these things are working.
Okay.
And they are readily available. So no need to buy it from us. You can try and find it in the local country that you are.
Great. And we'll put those things at stupeters.tv immediately following this interview. Dr. Batha, thank you so much for your bravery and for reporting this. And we need to find an expert that can now take your findings and opine on specifically what is this? What is this that we are looking at? So if there's any experts out there watching this, we want to hear from you. God bless you, and thank you so much for your bravery.
You are so welcome.
Amazing and horrific, never before seen images there provided by Dr. Dzandre Batha. We will put those things that help her injected patients at stupeters.tv. So if you're watching this on any other platform, go to stupeters.tv, look for this interview in the description below. That will be there. People who are around injected people who are trying to fight this off, people who are trying to stay healthy and avoid these chimerically engineered viruses. You should go to zstackprotocol.com. This is a formula that was developed by Dr. Zev Zelenko. He saved 99.9% of his high-risk COVID patients in upstate New York, thousands of lives, a nominee for the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the Nobel Prize. Dr. Zev Zelenko, he is a genius and believes in early treatment protocols. You can find what he has put together at zstackprotocol.com. Now, you can go to the drugstore on your own and put these things together. There's a multitude of them. You're going to have a whole bunch of bottles, but you can do it on your own. I'm not saying that you have to buy from Dr. Zelenko by any means. But if you don't want to deal with the dosing and all these multiple bottles, he provides this in a one-pill formula that you can find at zstackprotocol.com. Again, zstackprotocol.com. More of the Stu Peters Show right now.
Уважаеми зрители, видяхте още едно видеоматериал. Разговор за теми, които в медиите няма как да попаднат. И затова ви ги показваме в рубриката От мрежата. Този разговор няма как да го чуем в ефира, на която идея от многомилионните медии, които иначе имат ресурса да занимават обществото с какво ли не. Но този разговор за това какви са ефектите от ваксините, с много сериозни, вече показваме в поредица, много сериозни имена. И като Люк Монтенье, и като Карим Алис, които са Нобелови лауреати и коментираха темата. Показваме и различни лекари, в случая в Съединените щати, които имат позиция и наблюдения върху ефектите и върху това, което се наблюдава като ефект върху кръвта на хора, които са поставили в себе си тази течност, която иначе всички тези властници и медии ви казват, че трябва да сложите в себе си.
Интересно е, че между другото такива коментари, освен в телевизия Алфа в България, липсват. Това видео наистина набира голяма скорост в социалните мрежи, но не и в българския ефир. Знаете, че предимно за хората, които са може да се каже антиправителствена позиция по тази здравна тема, биват обявявани за непрофесионалисти, за неразбиращи, за първични хора и доста обидни епитети, които тук показаха миналите дни, за да има мир, антиваксъри в Сибир, както се изказаха така някои хора в
не знам дали осъзнават риска тези фанатици от това, че може да се концентрира твърде много интелектуален потенциал в Сибир.
Въпросът обаче е защо липсва такъв разговор в големите български медии и то да го коментират български лекари, между другото. Когато говорим, че нашите лекари се справят прекрасно и когато им пляскахме в 9 вечерта, сега е редно все пак някой от тях да се изкаже върху тази нова информация, тъй като, уважаеми зрители, вие знаете, че ние първи повдигнахме темата тук в българския ефир и на практика вече излизат и виждате, че излизат не само допълнителни научни доказателства, но и медицински такива. Така че вече все пак това трябва да залегне и в българското общество като тема и наистина в лекарските среди да се коментира, за да знаят българите от българските лекари каква е позицията им относно тези световни открития, които на практика се правят.
Ако искат особено да им повярваме, че са много загрижени. Ако искат да им повярваме, че са се загрижили, нека наистина да погледнат обективно цялата информация, а не да стават слуги на корпоративни интереси. Нека да погледнат това, за което говорят толкова много хора по света, с данни, факти, проучвания и сериозен аналитичен ум вложен в това, което ви показваме. Да, всеки има възможност да види тази информация, да се запознае и да прецени. Но няма как да ви повярваме, докато че сте загрижени, докато виждаме как хора умират пред спешните отделения в страната. Не само един случай станахме свидетели, но в последните дни това също е ясно доказателство за истинската загриженост.
Да, някой така просто си отива, докато чака да се завърши една процедура. Кое е по-важно в България? Процедурата или човешкия живот? Това е въпросът, който трябва да си зададем.
Това е големия въпрос и тези теми ще продължим да разглеждаме и от тук нататък в рубриката, която сме кръстили От мрежата, за да знаете истината за това колко хора по света вече говорят свободно. А не илюзията, че една шепа, която обикаля комфортно студията и пръска фанатизъм от там, като този математик, който Ани ти спомена преди малко, всъщност те са в една доста по-ограничена група, въпреки огромния финансов ресурс, който стои зад тях. Така че останете и следете и от тук нататък рубриката От мрежата.